Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this online service of Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, a loving, spirited, and ever more inclusive community. Whoever you are, wherever you are from, whomever you love, and whatever your faith tradition, you are welcome here. My name is Kathy Stevenson, and I'm the worship assistant this morning. I begin this service, as we do all our services, by acknowledging that the water, land, shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the Sklallam and Chimicum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain their homelands. In a moment, we'll light the chalice, but first, let us settle our minds and calm our hearts with the ringing of the chime. It is good to be together. Let us now join Rainer Hersch, the symphonic world's answer to Victor Borgi, as he assists the great Spanish soprano Ruhi Vidal in her warm-up prior to her very first concert on British soil. Thank you, Rainer and Laura. It is now time for our chalice lighting ritual. Please join me and Christina Tweed for our chalice lighting words by Sean Trapp. Our chalice reminds us that the fire within us is the same fire that illuminates the universe. It is our reminder that all is connected, even though the space of the void is vast and our experience here is but a blip in the cosmic timeline. Our opening words today are by Margaret Kipe. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves, to be at home here on earth, under the stars, linked with each other. Now is the time to welcome Bo Olgren, our Director of Family Ministry, who will share our time for all ages. Bo?
Good morning, everyone. Today we are exploring the influence and activism of one person who fell in love with space. And I am excited to share with you a beautiful story that speaks to our seventh principle of interconnectedness that I thought that he would enjoy too. So this is The Stuff of Stars by Marion Dane Bauer and illustrated by Gustav Holst. In the dark, in the dark, in the deep, deep dark, a speck floated. Invisible as a thought, weighty as God, there was yet no time, there was yet no space. No up, no down, no edge, no center. No earth with soaring hawks, scuttling beetles, trees reaching for the sky. There was no sky. No you, no me, only the speck, waiting, waiting. And then the beginning of the beginnings of all beginnings went bang. And in a trillionth of a second, our universe was born. A cloud of gas unfolded, unfurled, zigzagged, stretched, collided, expanded, 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 bits bumped, gathered, fused. And throughout the cosmos, stars caught fire. Trillions of stars, but still no planets to attend those stars. And if no planets, then no oceans, no mountains, no hippopotami, no violets blooming in a shady wood, no crickets singing to the night, no day, no night. The stars burned and burned. They burned so long and so hot that some of them exploded, flinging stardust everywhere. And the ash of those dying stars gathered into planets, and the planets circled into stars, but still no blueberries, no butterflies, still no snails, no giraffes, still no you, no me. The planets closest to their star stayed and were very hot. The ones far away grew very cold. But one lucky planet, a fragile blue ball called Earth, was neither too far nor too near. It circled its yellow star, the one we call the sun, from just the right distance and with just the right tilt to be sometimes warm and sometimes cool. Perfect for turning that starry stuff into mitochondria, jellyfish, spiders into ferns and sharks, into daisies and galloping horses. Again and again, stardust gave birth to stardust. Dinosaurs lived and died, making room for humans. Our great-great-great-grandparents and all before them lived and died, making room for more and more children. Then one day, in the dark, in the dark, in the deep, deep dark, another speck floated, invisible as dreams, special as love. Waiting, waiting, dividing, changing, growing, until at last you burst into the world. You took a big breath of that same air once breathed by woolly mammoths. You cried tears that were once salty seas, and your hair once the carbon in a leaf. You and the velvet moss, the caterpillars, the lions, you and the singing whales, the larks, the frogs. You and me loving you, all of us, the stuff of stars.
Thank you, Bo. Our pandemic worship services are always enhanced by your storytelling. Now is the time to acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us this morning. You are invited to say hello in the chat section and tell us your name and where you're from. The chat section can be found below or on the right side of the video when it is out of full screen, and we'd love to hear from you. We also hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour in our Zoom room. If you don't have that link, it will be posted in the chat section at the end of the service. And if you find this service useful or inspirational, maybe both, please share the link with your family and friends. So welcome, everyone. We are glad you're here with us today. We will now receive our offering. Today, our collection will go towards the buildings, program, and staffing costs of Quimper UU Fellowship. If you'd like to donate today, you have 3 options. Text the amount you'd like to give to the number now showing at the bottom of the screen. Go to our website, quf.org, and click on the Giving link, or simply mail a check to QUF. Just remember to put offering in the memo line. We will now gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Peter Meyer sing his own composition, The Play.
Go outside at night and look up and the stars are bright. Sometimes I lay on the ground and imagine that the sky is down. And if the earth should then let go, I'd fall into the stars below. I'd fall into the stars below. I see the red sunset in its quiet splendor, I reflect that sun's not going down at all, but the earth is turning somersaults. And through his sunlit sea trails, we are on that great big whale. We're riding on that great big whale. I try to grasp the simple fact of this existence. Think of all the fantasies, fairy tales and wishes. None strike me as more unlikely or magnificent than this is. Seen up close, galaxies through telescopes, crimson hillsides in the fall, and more astounding than them all are pondering minds with eyes that see. These are deep mysteries, deep mysteries. I try to grasp the simple fact of this existence. Think of all the fantasies, fairy tales and wishes. None strike me as more unlikely or magnificent than this is. Like a strange enchanting play of impossible dimensions, the setting and the stage run light years in all directions, and the breathless scenes of the storyline defy comprehension. Think of all the roles in this production. All I know is I'm in the cast, but could it be I'm also in a front row seat to sit in my amazement, gazing to ooh and ah, to sigh and say, my, what a wonderful play. My, 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 my.
We will now share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we place this first stone in honor of the great Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, who died on January 22nd at the age of 95. It was his belief that there is no death, only continuation. Many of us have found inspiration and grounding in his teachings, and his passing may bring sadness. Yet, may we find ways to keep his teaching fresh and alive within us and within our community. And now, within our congregation. Thank you. We light this first candle for Chris Copeland, who will undergo aortic valve replacement and bypass surgery on this Wednesday, February 2nd, at St. Michael's Center in Silverdale. Our thoughts are with you, Chris. We have a few birthdays to celebrate today. This first candle is for 3 people who shared the same birth date of January 21st. Diane Bomer, Pam Daly, and Meg Kaksick. The next candle is for Linda Murphy, whose birthday was on January 22nd. Happy belated birthday, Linda. And this next one is for Ida Domazlicky, whose birthday was January 26th. Many of you may not know Ida yet because she joined right before the pandemic hit, but she is part of our music team and provides most of the lovely images that accompany our music videos. Thank you, Ida, and happy birthday. And now we place a final stone, holding in our hearts the joys and sorrows I've just shared, but also thinking of the joys and sorrows among us that are unexpressed, but of no less importance. I invite you now into a moment of silence. Our reading this morning is titled A Universe of Possibilities by Jill Tarter. We live on a fragile island of life in a universe of possibilities. For many millennia, humans have been on a journey to find answers. Answers to questions about naturalism and transcendence, about who we are and why we are, and of course, who else might be out there. Is it really just us? Are we alone in this vast universe of energy and matter and chemistry and physics? Well, if we are, it's an awful waste of space. But what if we're not? What if out there others are asking and answering similar questions? What if they look up at the night sky at the same stars, but from the opposite side? Would the discovery of an older cultural civilization out there inspire us to find ways to survive our increasingly uncertain technological adolescence? Might it be the discovery of a distant civilization and our common cosmic origins that finally drives home the message of the bond among all humans? Whether we're born in San Francisco or Sudan, or close to the heart of the Milky Way galaxy, we are all the products of a billion-year lineage of wandering stardust. We, all of us, are what happens when a primordial mixture of hydrogen and helium evolves for so long that it begins to ask where it came from. Today's special music is the Andante Maestoso from Jupiter by Gustav Holst, performed by the Virtual Symphony Orchestra and Choir, directed by Ilia Skibinsky. Our guest speaker today is Laurie Riley. Laurie has authored several books, including Who We Are, Exploring the Unlimited Self, and Practical Compassion, which explores the human psyche and spirit. She maintains a website, soulofcompassion.com, where you can read her blogs and access her books. Laurie moved here from Whidbey Island and has been an occasional speaker here at QUF since she became a member 4 years ago.
Good morning. Among the many television screenwriters who've influenced our world, did you know that Gene Roddenberry, the creator of the Star Trek television series, was a familiar face at Unitarian Universalist services, and that his humanist views, as presented outspokenly in his 2 Star Trek series, had a profound effect on our modern culture. Gene Roddenberry, who was born in 1921, majored in aeronautical engineering, flew for the United States Army Air Corps and for Pan American World Airways, and worked for the Los Angeles Police Department. In 1956, however, he decided to pursue screenwriting. Previous to creating the Star Trek series, he successfully wrote scripts for several familiar old TV series. And you have to be pretty old to remember them. I do. At one point, Roddenberry was asked to write a series called Riverboat, set in 1860s Mississippi. But when he discovered that the producers wanted no black people on the show, he argued with them and lost the job. He later created a series called The Lieutenant, which was produced with the cooperation of the Pentagon, but their support was withdrawn after Roddenberry included an episode in which a white and a black man were co-featured as Marines. Yes, television and the Pentagon were in the dark ages. And television, as we know, both reflects societal norms and helps create them. Eventually, Roddenberry decided to write a science fiction series, and in 1964, Star Trek was born. It was the first science fiction series that did not portray all alien life as threatening, but instead portrayed other life forms as possessing a variety of characteristics, just as humans do. The heroes of his series were not frightened, defensive Earthlings bent on defeating unknown creatures and cultures. And Roddenberry was determined to make his cast of heroes racially and ethnically diverse people who live by principles of fairness and peace. But the series was plagued by low ratings, and it was canceled after only 3 seasons. So how did it become the iconic series that it's now considered to be? Young people of conscience spoke out. Star Trek conventions sprung up and began to build support to bring it back. And in 1972, TV Guide described Star Trek as the show that won't die. Hence, Star Trek: The Next Generation was created in 1987, and despite ongoing contention, the new series lasted an amazing 178 episodes. Roddenberry and his screenwriters and actors consistently used Star Trek as a delivery mode for social justice commentary. When we watch the reruns, which are now shown nightly, the moral paradigms they portray may seem normal to us now, but back then, even as late as 1987, they were revolutionary. Roddenberry's ideas finally got the notice they deserved, and in 1991, he was awarded the Humanist Arts Award from the American Humanist Association. He stated, "Star Trek is more than just my political philosophy, my racial philosophy, my overview on life and the human condition." In other words, he was saying that he was not alone in his views. Earlier this week, I had a fascinating telephone conversation with one of the original Star Trek actresses, who, as a teenager, enjoyed being part of what she referred to as the Star Trek family. And she regaled me with stories about participating in casting and screenwriting as well as acting. Apparently, the cast, including the youth, had quite a voice in the presentation of the episodes. She also mentioned to me that they were constantly monitored by Hollywood and government higher-ups who cast a disapproving eye on racial and cultural diversity in their programming. For instance, the Russian crew member, Dr. Chekhov, or Mr. Chekhov, I should say, was a point of contention, as was the inclusion of an Asian character, Mr. Sulu. Lieutenant Commander Okura, portrayed by Nichelle Nichols, was one of the first black characters on television who was not cast as a servant. She was also one of the first female military officers depicted on TV. The network at first demanded that Uhura should have a male counterpart portrayed to double-check all her work. But the cast refused to comply. Because of contention within the network over her role, she considered quitting the show. But Dr. Martin Luther King convinced her not to leave because he said, quote, "For the first time, we are being seen the world over as we should be seen," unquote. Gene Roddenberry responded, "Finally, someone gets it." Whoopi Goldberg, who played Guinan on Star Trek Next Generation, described Uhura as a role model, recalling that she had exclaimed to her family, "I just saw a black woman on TV and she was not a maid." To see how far we've come, NASA later employed Nichols in a campaign to encourage women and people of color to join the service. Dr. Mae Jemison, the first black woman to fly aboard the NASA space shuttle, cited Star Trek as an influence, and Jemison herself later had a minor role on an episode of Next Generation. The 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism were well represented in Star Trek. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, the goal of world community, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, all were exemplified by Starfleet's prime directive, which stated, quote, "As the right of each sentient species to live in accordance with its normal cultural evolution is considered sacred, no Starfleet personnel may interfere with the normal and healthy development of alien life and culture. This directive takes precedence over any and all other considerations and carries with it the highest moral obligation." Unquote. Additional qualities that Unitarian Universalists strive for were represented in the characters themselves. I've always been particularly appreciative of the opportunity the Vulcan Spock and the android Data represented for discourse on the subject of logic versus heart, in which, in real life, lie many of humanity's communication problems when we lean too heavily toward one without giving credence to the other. And even with the contentious discussions between the characters Dr. McCoy and Mr. Spock, it was demonstrated that discourse is the best path, a lesson we could take to heart in our own current interactions as Unitarian Universalists. Here are a few memorable quotes from Mr. Spock that we could do well to heed. "Insufficient facts always invite danger. The needs of many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. In critical moments, people sometimes see exactly what they wish to see. Change is the essential process of all existence. The character of the android Data embodies the idea that logic and heart are equally valid. Although his intellectual capabilities were far superior to any living being, he strove to become more human. And he was encouraged to pursue a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, while also being carefully instructed in moral principles. Data was often perplexed by irrational human behaviors and tried to make sense of them. In one episode, he remarked ironically, "Could you please continue the petty bickering? I find it most intriguing." Among other great characters, there's also, of course, the wise Captain Picard, whose integrity is exemplified in these quotes. "The road from legitimate suspicion to rampant paranoia is very much shorter than we think. You cannot explain away a wantonly immoral act because you think it is connected to some higher purpose. Maybe we can still listen to the meaningful messages that Gene Roddenberry's iconic characters put forth. Look at those principles as possible in reality and not just fiction. Ask ourselves if we are living up to what we UUs claim to be and take seriously our own QUUF covenant, which, though I've taken the liberty of updating one word, states, "We are travelers. We meet for a moment in this sacred universe to love, to share, to serve. Let us use compassion, curiosity, reverence, and respect while seeking our truths. In this way, we will support a just and joyful community, and this moment shall endure. Make it so."
Our closing song today will be a classic for some of you, as Case Kolf and the QUUF Choir, conducted by Marge Euro, perform the Galaxy Song. Imagery is by Doug Rogers.
Whenever life gets you down, my friends, and things seem hard and tough, and you've volunteered for way too many things, and you feel that you've had quite enough, just remember that you're standing on a planet that's evolving and revolving at 900 miles an hour. It's orbiting at 19 miles a second, so it's reckoned, round the sun that is the source of all our power. The sun and you and me and all the stars that you can see are moving at 1,000,000 miles a day. Oh my! In an outer spiral arm at 40,000 miles an hour, in a galaxy we call the Milky Way. Milky Way. Our galaxy itself contains 100 billion stars. It's 100,000 light years side to side. It bulges in the middle, 16,000 light years thick. But out by us, it's just 3,000 light years wide. We're 30,000 light years from galactic central point, and go around every 200 million years. And our galaxy is only one of millions and billions in this amazing and expanding universe. universe itself keeps on expanding and expanding in all of the directions it can whiz. As fast as it can go, the speed of light, you know. 12 million miles a minute, that's the fastest thing there is. So remember when you're feeling very small and insecure, how amazingly unlikely is your birth. And pray that there's intelligent life somewhere out in space, 'cause there's bugger all down here on Earth. Lighten up, there are stars in the sky. Lighten up, it's a good question why. You don't know the answer, and neither do I. So meanwhile, it's just all lighten up. And remember, as a Unitarian Universalist, no dogma, no fundamentalism. There are no 10 commandments, only 7 little principles. No original sin or intellectual schism. The earth is sacred and we believe in justice, but more than that is really hard to say. We could be naturalists, mystics, humanists, or theists. We're you-yous and we like to find that way. We could be naturalists, mystics, humanists, or theists. We're you-yous and we like to find that way.
It's almost time to extinguish our chalice, but first let me remind you that Kate Kinney will be leading our service next week. The sermon title is Feet on the Ground Theology, Embracing the Here and Now. It is the first of a 2-part sermon series. Kate Lohr will follow with a sermon on UU liberation theology. I hope you can join us. And now, please join Christina and me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. After the service, I hope you'll join us for our virtual coffee hour. What you can expect is to be placed into a Zoom room with one of our coffee hour hosts who will facilitate personal check-ins as well as reflection questions on the sermon topic. Hope to see you there. But first, let us turn our full attention to Anthony Hermes as he conducts the Danish National Symphony Orchestra in a final fanfare to celebrate Star Trek.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise, its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.